So, good evening. Sorry for the interruption. Seems to be is something is happening with our Zoom that when get everything tested as we progress and more people sign in, some way, some shape or form, the volume is for the people who are the participants on Zoom, the volume then goes out. So we're going to continue this Bible study on here. Got everyone. I just want to apologize for the technical difficulties. Miss Monica. Hello. Great. So thank you. Giving everyone a chance to get in. Giving everyone a chance to jump on in here. Hello, everyone. Everyone, good evening. Good evening to those getting signed in. Just asking, being patient, getting people a chance to get on. Hello, Miss Latanya Tate. Hello, great. Good evening, Miss Barbara Cherry. Good evening, Miss Sandra Williams. Good evening to those. We're gonna have this figured out. Try to figure out what's going on. But so again, we're gonna pick up right where we left off. So we are here, making sure Miss Denise Tate. Okay, great. So King Nebuchadnezzar had a great respect for Daniel. Okay, so Daniel 3:1 says that the king made an image of gold despite his respect for Daniel. And he made some rules as it relates to this image, right? He had this enormous figure, right? This big old gold statue. And the exact location of where it was is kind of debated amongst historians. But some scholars note that this statue survived somewhere in the Euphrates tributary, right? So undoubtedly the king placed it in a prominent spot where it could be seen from miles away. You're not going to build something that big and then not want it to be seen. It's just not going to happen, right? So the king decreed that the musicians would play and use various instruments and things like that. And then upon hearing these instruments play, you had to bow down. Now, what this was a loyalty test. Like, meaning that if you bowed down, you were showing your loyalty to King Nebuchadnezzar. If you look at verse 7, Verse 7 informs us that, not surprisingly, that the compliance with this decree was virtually in totality, meaning that once the king said it, it was immediately adhered to, and 99.9% of people did it just upon the decree, right? When the music sounded, people of all nationalities, languages bowed low to the ground and worshiped Nebuchadnezzar's golden image. So, except these three individuals. Now, can you imagine the entire city of Babylon on their knees, bowing down? How big of a sore thumb it would be if you're standing up and you're not bowing down? So it was easy to point out Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because they were not, bowing down. So look at verse number, let's jump to verse number 8 through 12. Verse number 8 through 12 read, says, but some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. Verse 9 says, they said to the King Nebuchadnezzar, long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and other musical instruments. Verse number 11 says, the decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into the fiery furnace. Verse 12, but there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the statue you have set up. Now, most politicians today, go back to verse number 8. Most politicians today are excited with 51% of the majority of an approval rate, right? When we just came through an election season, and most politicians, if they got 51% approval, and they get really excited when it gets to 60. This, Miss Turner, what do you mean? Is this the fixed one? I'm not sure what you're asking me. Yeah, we're definitely live. We're live right now. So, but some astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. So here we are, that they get excited now, politicians today, when they get to 60%, but Nebuchadnezzar, right, couldn't tolerate anything less than 100%. And he had advisors who were quite happy to take advantage of that fact because they were already jealous that these boys were receiving favor from King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, we got a translation to be astrologers, but if you look at the King James version or any other older texts or versions of the Bible, they call them Chaldeans. Okay, call them Chaldeans, and that word Chaldean occurs more than 150 times in the Bible, and in its meaning, as you go throughout the Bible, that the meaning of that word changes. Initially, the word Chaldean seems to have indicated some type of ethnic group in the regions of Babylon and Sumer, Sumer. But notably in Genesis chapter 11, verses 28 and 31, Abraham first lived in the of the Chaldeans. So there you find a different space, but over the time, Chaldeans became the predominant. Good evening, Miss Simmons. Became the predominant component of the Babylonian Empire. And in Jeremiah, what you find is that and Ezekiel, the Chaldean, is usually synonymous with Babylonian. Okay, so within King Nebuchadnezzar's empire, however, the term Chaldean simply means more specific, and it relates to the learned class of people in this text, meaning the priests, the astrologers, the magicians. So as you're studying it, and that's why it's important to understand the etymology of words and where they're placed in the Bible. So when you're studying them, that you don't get things confused, because things may not mean the same as you go from book to book. So hope that explains that. But so it was also those that rose to a royal advisor or an administrator role. But anyway, they're the same ones who suffered the humiliation when they could not translate Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Good evening, Sister Amy. I hope you're doing well. And they couldn't tell him, nor could they interpret it, right? So then now they got some type of feelings. They ain't feelings because they couldn't do it and Daniel could, right? So now these people had to go tell. And look at how they tell, because the same thing happens today. People who go try to stab you in the back on your job. Listen, well, you a great boss. Let me tell you what these jokers out here doing. Man, you look good today. Let me tell you what they out here doing. Yeah, you know what you said. Let me tell you what they out there doing. Look, they say it right here in verse number 8. Wherefore at the time the Chaldeans came, I'm gonna get to it. Verse number 9. They said to the king, "Long live the king." Look what they say. "O king, long live the king." They giving the king his praise, and which was standard for addressing a monarch, but they was buttering them up basically, right? And like it's similar to like, God save the king, long live the king, stuff like that. But anyway, they were coming in trying to flatter the king and butter him up because they was getting ready to tattletale. So they were again setting their case on some solid footing. So then they said, "Do you know what you just said?" Look what they said. They reminded the king and said, "Do you remember that you issued a decree?" They found it necessary to remind the king that he did it. Now, mind you, when they came before the king, they weren't there by themselves. I think we must understand the context that when you came into the royal court, that there were other people listening. And Nebuchadnezzar could not take it. He was one who needed 100% obedience to his decree and his rule. So now they came in and they got a little cloud about themselves too. And they you know how they do. "Do you remember what you said, king? You made a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship that statue that you made." And like just me being plain thinking, Nebuchadnezzar did not forget the fact that he made this decree. But they eagerly brought it to his attention to make sure that it was in the forefront of his mind, right? And they said that anyone who did not bow down must be thrown into the fiery furnace. And I can imagine that Nebuchadnezzar, was like, yeah, I know what I made. Yep, And then after they set the tone, Because that's how folks do. That's how haters do. That's how people who don't like you do. When you're standing up for what you're supposed to be doing, and then they feel like they got a leg up on you, they'll set the stage, and then they'll say, well, you know, your homeboys over there, the ones you favored so much, the ones you like so much, the ones you put in charge of us, the ones who, just a few years ago, they interpreted a dream and they were so much better than us. Now, they not bowing down to you. And then basically like, what you gonna do about that? Because he had to remind them, now look now, again, they not only talking to the king, they talking loud enough in my spiritual imagination for everybody around them to hear it. But, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you put in charge of the province of Babylon, basically reminding the king that these are the people you put in charge. They not listening to you. So what makes anybody else gonna listen to you? The motive for this reminder was no doubt, catch this now, to highlight, to make the king cognizant of that they had an ingratitude to the king for their position. And to emphasize to the king their unworthiness to fulfill the position. See, people will try to make you feel and be less than or make you look like you unworthy when they think that you got some favor that you didn't deserve. But what you must remind them by staying steadfast is that your promotion didn't come from that king. Your promotion didn't come from Nebuchadnezzar. Your promotion came because you were obedient to the ultimate king, to the King of Kings, to the Lord of Lords. That's where your promotion came from. And because you were obedient to that king, that obedience led to this earthly king to promote you. But they had it flipped around. And sometimes we get it flipped around too. Right? So instead, they were trying to say, instead of showing an appreciation to the monarch and to his gods, and specifically to him, because of the honor that they felt that he, meaning King Nebuchadnezzar, had bestowed upon him, how can you let them defy you like that, Nebuchadnezzar? How you gonna let them not serve the kings and the statues that you said to serve? Now, catch this now. The decree regarding the golden image did not mention anything about serving other gods in Babylon. But the advisors must have felt it strengthened their cause against the Jews to mention it. Look there, look right there, verse number 12. They refuse to serve your gods. Folk will make up some stuff on you. Now, that wasn't even a part of the rules. That wasn't even a part of the bowing down. That wasn't even a part of the decree. And then as they coming in to tell, folks, when they tell on you or they think they're telling or doing something, they always got to add more to the story to make it sound better. Y'all know how folks do. They add to it just to fluff it up, to give it more oomph, to give it more power. So then, to spurn the service and the worship, now they saying, well, they insulting you, king. They are insulting your niceness to them. And because they brought this to King Nebuchadnezzar's attention, In front of people, Nebuchadnezzar couldn't ignore it. No matter the respect he had for Daniel, no matter the respect he had for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, no matter the remembrance that it brought to him as it relates to what they did for him, and interpreting the dream, he couldn't ignore it. Now let's look down at verse number 13. We're gonna go to 13 through 18. It says, then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him, and they were brought in. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the statue I have set up? Now, catch this. This is what happened when folks get mad. This is a segue. Nebuchadnezzar already knew that they didn't worship his gods. Matter of fact, he said it. It was their God that brought them out, that brought him. He already knew, but now he's so mad that they not worshiping that statue. Now he got a problem with them not worshiping his God, something he already knew. But keep that in the back of your mind. We're going to come back to it. Verse 15 says, I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And what God will be able to rescue you from my power. Verse 16 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. Verse 17 says, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, then the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. Then he goes on to say, but even if he doesn't, verse 18, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve the gods you worship, serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. That's what I love about them boys. Them boys knew. So let's jump down back to verse number 13. Now, here is Nebuchadnezzar mad. He ordered them to go get him. They came quick. Now, my first question when I asked this was, where in the world was Daniel? Because I know if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego weren't bowing down, Daniel wasn't bowing down either. So I was asking the question, where was Daniel? Because I also know that as they were so eager to trap those three, they would not have missed the opportunity to get Daniel too. Daniel, in fact, I believe would have been the grand prize if they would have caught him in an act of disobedience and not following the king's decrees. So I was studying and came across one commentary that said, and I'll read it verbatim from my notes. It says, the most reasonable answer is that Daniel is one of the highest and most trusted officials in Nebuchadnezzar's court. Daniel presumably made regular trips around and beyond the province to oversee the king's business. So we can justifiably conclude that he was away from Babylon at this time. So, okay, that answered that question. But look, Nebuchadnezzar could not even grasp the fact that there were some people disobeying him. He had to ask them, is it true? You know how some people are so narcissistic, some people are so caught up on themselves. Some people are, you got some bosses like that. We got a president gonna be like that. We got some folk in elected positions and in appointed positions who are like that will find them and think of themselves so highly and whatever, that they find it difficult to believe when you stand on your principles and you stand on your morals and you stand on righteousness and not do what they say, that they got the nerve to ask, is it true? That's what Nebuchadnezzar asked. Is it true that you dare to defy me? Is it true? And you know it's got to be important because they all standing right there, but he had to call each one of their names separately. Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Because he was letting them know, like, do you know what I did for you individually? Do you know the what I gave to you? That you don't worship the statue that I set up? But this is what I love about about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is what I love about them. Them brothers, good gracious alive, them brothers are resolute. They are, look what Nebuchadnezzar does in verse 16, 16 through 18. He says, 15, I will give you one more chance, he says. Made you when you hear the sound of musical instruments, but if you refuse, you'll be thrown immediately to the blazing furnace. Verse 16 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, hey, bro, hey, oh Nebuchadnezzar, I ain't gotta defend myself. But if we're thrown into that blazing furnace, the God who we serve is able to save us. They literally declared. Yep, Miss Cherry. Yep. That's real faith. Yep, Now check this. He asked them a question. Nebuchadnezzar had asked what God could possibly save them from a death sentence. And then they replied back, hey, I know one that can. Not only that, but they were confident that he would actually do so. And he will deliver us out of thine hand. Now, can you imagine being King Nebuchadnezzar and you hearing that confidence come from people who are right now imminently getting ready to be thrown into a furnace? He didn't expect that confidence. Do you have confidence like that in the midst of your trials and tribulations? Do you have the confidence to stand firm, to stand 10 toes down, as the young folks say, stand on business? Do you have that confidence enough to say to whatever that you are facing, that's testing your God, that's testing your faith, that says that God can't save you from this? Do you have the confidence and the faith enough to say, well, I know a God that will. Are you that confident enough to draw your own line in the sand and say, by my faith, I expect God to do for me what he said he's going to do for me, and you can't make me doubt him? You can't make me turn my back on him. You can't make me bow down and worship anything else. You can't make me do anything that's outside of his will. Do you have that faith today? Even do you have faith enough to stand even in the midst and say, and even if he don't save me, even if he don't come, even if he don't protect me in this space from what you're about to do to me, I'm still not going to bow down. I'm still not going to do what you asked me to do, because in the end, even if it's in his will and he still got me anyway. Because that's what I love about them. That's what I love about these boys. These boys give us an example in the midst of their trials, in the midst of their tribulations. They were persecuted because they were being obedient to God. They were sought out. They were picked on. They were told on. They were drugged before a totalitarian king, a dictator, if you will, who had the ability to end their physical lives and tried to. And even in the midst of them facing this huge task, this huge monumental problem, they stood firm in the God that they believe. My brothers and sisters, I'm asking you today, do you have that same faith? Do you have that same? If you don't have that faith, I'm asking you to pray, to ask God to give you that faith. Now, there's a catch to this. There's a catch. I've learned this in my 41 years of living. You can't pray to God and ask him for something and then he not give it to you. And sometimes he gives it to you by means of a test. You can't ask God for more patience and he not give you more stuff to be patient about. You can't ask him for faith and he gonna put you in a place where you got to have some faith. You got to trust in what you don't see. But that by faith we are healed. By faith we are delivered. By faith we are set free. By faith we are uplifted. By faith we are expanded. By faith our territory is expanded. By faith we are elevated. You got to have it, and you're gonna have to go through something to show that faith to be true. Yep, Miss Turner. Yep, we got to develop a God-like character. You're right. You are definitely right. Well, my brothers and sisters, that's our time today. That's the end of my lesson. I am going to promise to you that we're going to get this Zoom thing fixed. I would like to be able to have a conversation back and forth with you. I'm not sure what's going on. So we're going to do some testing in the upcoming days to figure out and make sure that it is working going forward. Our next lesson will be coming from the book of Daniel. We will be in Daniel chapter 3, still in Daniel chapter 3. We'll pick up at verse number 19 and go through verse number 28. Daniel chapter 3, 19 through 28. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you, and I look forward to worshiping with you on Sunday.